Hi, everybody. If you're 45 or older, talk to your doctor, schedule colonoscopy. Thanks, everybody, for stopping in. Today we are going to buck our Purple Punch Lemon Drizzle and basically just hang out and talk. Uh, Let me do this here. Before the loop going. All right. Basically, because this is kind of a long shot for an educational video. This is just what I do, and maybe it's not something I'll do every time, but when certain circumstances arise, you got to be able to be flexible and have maybe a broader understanding of what's going on to be successful. Now, I'm using my laptop today, so I'm sorry if the picture's pretty crappy. That's why I got the background going here. Hopefully that makes everything a little bit clearer. I'm getting a pretty good picture on my TV over there, so we're going to go with it. I don't have the perfect drying conditions around here, and with the bug pressures we had this year and the temperatures we're going through in Minnesota, it's warmer. It's been the last 2 years, September has been the warmest it's ever been in Minnesota, which does nothing for trying to cure or trying to dry your buds outside. What I'm dealing with now is I've got a great big ass weeping willow tree that, with the leaves the way they are, has its own kind of environment inside. It's a little more controlled than the lower at night, humid, wet, cold temperatures, and during the day, hot, sunny, drier temperatures. It's kind of, a little more homogeneous underneath that tree. So I am getting dry, crispy leaves, which is what you want. Let me get a cut off of here. Wish I knew the speaker was on here, but you may be able to hear that that's pretty crispy. And you can tell that I'm breaking that off and it's, turned to dust pretty much. But your stem still bends without making any noise. And ideally, I did this at night. I'm pressed for time, so I left all the fan leaves on, which to me it ain't a big deal anyways. Just more trimming now. But ideally, when you bend this branch, you should hear a little crunching noise. In normal conditions, you'll hear that, and that'll be your signal that you're going to buck your buds off and either dry trim them if they're not already trimmed, and then put them in your sealed containers, whether they're jars or buckets or whatever. Being as though I'm going to be busy and I don't have the time and tomorrow we're going to have another hot temperature. We're going to have like 80 degrees tomorrow again. And if this was to be outside in 80-degree temperatures in 2 days in a row, all the trichomes would burn off, everything would oxidize, and you'd be left with brown crap, basically. So what I'm doing is I'm being flexible. Much like this branch right now, it's flexible. We're going to buck, since the leaves on the outside are crispy, the whole plant is like that. Since the leaves are crispy and the stem still has moisture in it, and I don't have the option of letting it sit in this form one more day, I'm going to buck it off. First, I'm going to take off the fan leaves now and clean up a little some of this extra stuff, and then just buck the bud. Probably with a little segment of branch on it still, because we don't want them to dry out too fast, especially the small ones. And then I'm going to put it in a paper grocery bag. You can see this one's been used a couple of times. And then that bag is going to go into a 5-gallon pail with a lid on it. The paper bag is going to take the place of the stem and kind of keep the moisture in. It's not going to replace the stem, but it's going to somewhat litigate the problem of not having a stem on here anymore, and slow the dry enough to where when I am able to look at it, if it's not drying fast enough, I can take it out of the bucket and leave it in the bag. If it's really moist yet, I can take it out of the bag and the bucket and spread it out in a kind of controlled area for a little while. TJ, how you doing, man? Thank you. We're doing the best we can right now. May have come down a little early because of bug pressure and everything, but I appreciate you stopping by, brother. Yeah, we're talking curing in an emergency. And then we'll be talking, other things. Anybody have any suggestions or questions about anything? Some of you probably have never seen me. If you've been watching for a while, haven't seen me with hair. I'm growing my hair out. That's a story in itself. Has to do with some cancer and actually some chemo that I never would have lost my hair in the first place, but I wasn't aware of that at the time. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to let it fall out. I'm just going to shave it off. So I went. And then once I did that, it was pretty easy just to keep short hair around. But I'm growing it out again. What the heck? So we can talk about that. Colon cancer, why I have my saying at the beginning, and hopefully I remember every time. 45 or older, talk to your doctor, schedule colonoscopy. Anyways, this ain't the highest quality of stuff because it's missing all of its tops. I cut the tops off early because we were dealing with all them damn budworms, and that was probably a bad idea. I'd never dealt with budworms before, and there's different ways you can handle it. I ended up taking the pick them off angle, and we seem to have turned a corner now. We're seeing less pressure than we were prior. But since this plant still has a lot of water in it, we're going to use a paper bag inside a bucket, and this is basically going to be our mason jar and our curing system. The paper bag's going to be the buffer in between the atmosphere, which is going to want to do things a little faster sometimes than you may want, or a little slower, so you can kind of adjust it. And, if you're dealing with a situation like I am and you don't have an indoor environment you can do it in, I can't even dry it here in the garage because it's going to stink up too much. Though we are in a legal state, it's not exactly accepted by everybody. And, to, I don't know, keep people happy, once again, you want to be able to bend and not break, So that's my motto. When I see people in my daily job, I want to make them leave feeling better or maybe in a better mood. They come in frowning. Hopefully they leave with at least part of a smile. At least that's my objective when I'm dealing with, the public, let's say. Anyways, I could smell that. Like I said, I have these branches hanging in a weeping willow tree. We've hit close to 80 degrees today. I didn't exactly see, maybe it was 78, 77, but a lot of your beneficial oils that are on this plant are going to melt or burn off or whatever. And I can show you the difference between some stuff I've cut down a week and a half ago and I'm curing right now compared to this stuff here, night and day. The structure is more fuller. It didn't dry up so much. The other stuff was rushed, and on top of it, we had warmer weathers, and it just wasn't conducive. This stuff here is dry and slower. It was a little more mature, and it's not completely, I don't think, but it's dense, and that's kind of what I go for. If it's got some fight back when you squish down on it, when that dries completely, it's going to be a good smoke. And it does have, it's a green smell, uh, but it's also a sweet green smell. So that'll also change a little bit. Um, it was an expensive seed my buddy bought, and it's a beautiful looking plant. I just think the terps aren't quite there that where I'm at. He wasn't really happy with it either. I don't know exactly what his issue with it was. I smoked some of it. It smoked all right. Um, so I don't know. Could be anything. Could be the nutrients. Maybe he had a bad time drying. Maybe he didn't like the structure. I don't know. I mean, all it takes is one, wherever your weakest link is, that's pretty much where you're going to end up with your stuff. So whatever, if you're drying is your weakest link, work on that. If it's your growing is your weakest link, work on that. If it's your atmosphere or your growth spot, your environment, work on that. Pests, work on getting rid of them. Yeah, I don't know. There's not a whole lot of smell, but right now what we're doing is letting not exactly microbes, but the life inside these plants to break down the chlorophyll and sugar and everything else that's left inside here. So that's in the curing process. So in the drying process, to where you're trying to get those buds to that state, you do not want to go too dry. You go too dry, you can try and add as much water back to these plants as you can, or as you want to, but they're enzymes is what I'm trying to think of. Your enzymes are going to die off, and there's no bringing those back. And the enzymes are what is converting the chlorophyll, or eating the chlorophyll, or consuming it, and leaving behind the beneficial oils and the flavors that you're looking for and such. You know what? I should try out. I have a microphone and earplugs, or whatever you want to call them, headphones. So I'm going to try those out while we're doing this and see if maybe the sound for you guys works out a little better. I do have a camera too. That's something else we're going to be working on this winter. I haven't had a damn bit of time this summer or spring or anything to work on the technology of the channel. But I do have a camera that I believe I can hook up to this laptop to do a show. Oh, okay, let's read some of these comments. I was missing them. Finding hot women is your weakest link. I hear you, man. Of course, if I found one, I probably wouldn't know what to do with them anymore. Oh, you're learning some stuff from Grambo? All right. Well, hey, TJ Rez, thanks for stopping in. I appreciate you. Have a great deal. Have a great time at dinner. Yeah, Grambo, he's a ladies' man for sure, the way it sounds, and a funny guy. I wish him the best of luck, and you also. We'll catch you on the flip side. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to keep up doing what we're doing here. And off to the next. We're going to keep working on this thing. I've got a couple hours to work on it. I have not worked any on my buzz today, or tonight actually. And I was gifted, which I'm pretty happy about this. He was just telling me this afternoon, he's like, man, buddy, you gave me this big block of butter and we made these cookies and bars and stuff. So a little while later, he brought me in a cookie and a bar, and I can imagine they're pretty potent. Now, he's a big guy, and he said he had a cookie and then a bar and then maybe another cookie. And then like 2 hours later, he was just blasted. Bah! So I'm going to go with half a cookie right now because I have to do a show and finish this. And then I'm going to, after I do this and a little bit of talking or whatever, I'm going to eat that half of that brownie or that, or the cookie bar or whatever. Right now, I'm pretty impressed. I'll tell you why. Because I've made a lot of cookies and I always rush them. So they're always really hard as a rock. Edible, but hard as a rock. This has great flavor. You can taste the infused butter in it. The cookie recipes are good. And it's not breaking your teeth trying to eat it. Very good, guys. Thank you. All right, so this is the Purple Punch Lemon Drizzle with all the coals cut off because they were having problems with them damn bugs. This here is the blueberry sprinkle, I think. Let me think a second. Yeah, it's got to be. It feels like it. I'm pretty sure it is. I brought this into the house and dried it for a couple of days, and I'm going to trim it up now to see what that bud looks inside there. Looks like inside there. But yeah, your environment, if that's your weakest link, then you got to be able to be flexible. What I would suggest is research a couple of different ways, and this would go, to me, it would go the same way like if you were drying in a controlled environment. Maybe try a couple of different ways of doing it. One that you're more familiar with, you might want to do on a bigger scale, but try a smaller scale. And you may find that certain cultivars, if you're growing if you can back up your research a couple of times, you might find that certain cultivars will do better in a little bit different way. If you're drying a little bit different way, like looser, airier buds, say maybe some got a little more nitrogen than you wanted or whatever. You can use this paper bag method. What I usually do in that case is I will wet trim and then put all the bud, or wet trim and dry them down to a point to where they're still sticky and wet, or sticky and moist. But not, sopping wet. Then put them in a paper bag. And then I would leave them on the stem too. If you're wet trimming, leave them on the stem, lay them down or dry them for a couple of days or whatever, lay them down in that bag sideways, and then I'll take the bag and squish it down a little bit. This is really airy, but squish it down a little bit so you're compacting and bringing that stuff back to a, as it dries, it'll be a little denser bud. It'll be a smaller one, but it'll be denser. And then you're slowing down that dry again, or the slowing down the cure, and you'll get a better, smoother outcome. Anyhow, this is pretty green looking yet, but I'm not upset about the way that looks. Now I've got 3 plants. 2 of them are going to blow this one out of the water. And then one is just starting to, it's probably in week 3 or 4 of flower. It was a really late starter. It did beef up quite a bit. It's the biggest plant, that 11-foot wide one. That is the one that is the slowest. I'm not too sure about anything about what that one's going to be like, other than I did get some smell off of it now finally. It never had any smell to start out with. So I'm happy with that. But this is the blueberry sprinkle. And then this one here. Yeah, I think that's blueberry sprinkle too. Oh. Nope. I know where it is. Hold on. I got an example of the gubble bum somewhere. There it is. This is going to be that one there is the blueberry, the bubblegum flavored plant that I have, that I popped a seed from my last year's power plant, that when I was hitting some other plants with some pollen, probably got hit, or it's just naturally pollinated out there. But this has the densest from the the whole structure of the flower is dense. Like these out here, the outside has a little bit of give to it. Same thing with this, had a little bit of give, and then it's got some solid core. But here's a seed, viable seed. Let's see if I can balance it on my finger there. Ah, shit, never mind. Gone. All right, so that's going in there. That's basically all we're doing. And anything really larvae, I'm just going to leave on the plant, and we'll deal with that later. It'll end up going in probably a paper bag too, and then if we need something to make some food products out of, or whatever, we'll pop into this bag and just pull off some stuff. We want to make some rosin and stuff. No problem. We got something to do that with. Now that would be flower rosin. It wouldn't be the nice white, clear, or yellow, or whatever stuff you might be getting from dispensaries now, because it sounds like in Minnesota, a couple of dispensaries actually opened in the cities. So keep an eye out for those. Sounds like they're pretty expensive, which I'm not surprised. Stand up here for a bit. We're just going to go to town. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a rough year with bug pressures, but it is what it is. We learned a lot, I will say, having to deal with them damn caterpillars. Never seen anything like that before. Never want to again, but I have a feeling that's a fat chance. I don't know where they came from. If it's just because we've been legal now a couple of years and they've been able to take a foothold here. It sounds like that's probably not the case because they're not supposedly able to live through winter. So we've got that going for us, I guess, if that's true. But they made it here pretty dang easy, and they're moths, so or their parents are moths, so they're able to get around pretty easily, though, wherever they're coming from. They only have to go a few states to not find such a harsh winter. So yeah, whatever. Next year we're gonna head them off before they get here with some BT. That's like Bacillus thuringiensis or something like that. I don't know. Thuringiensis. Anyways, it is a fungus, the way it sounds, that either disrupts their appetite, I guess, is what it would be. There's also other forms of pesticides. Sounds like there's a sulfur, some kind of pesticide. I don't know how, I mean, it's got to be organic. I guess sulfur's made of the earth. It may not be the best for you or the plants, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, most of the stuff you don't want to spray when you got flower on here. And some of this stuff, be aware of this. Any of you new growers, if you're dealing with what I believe is neem oil, is what they're talking about when they're talking about oils, spraying oils on your flowers or on your plants before flower or whatever. It sounds like if you're using oils or sulfurs, be careful and don't use them within like several days of each other because you'll burn your plants, I guess. The sulfur and the neem oil combined and whatever it makes, it's not good for them. So just be aware of that when you're spraying. If you're not just spraying one thing, which I wouldn't advise that either, because you don't want to build up the tolerance of some kind of bug. Oops, I sprayed buck that. While you're trying to, neutralize them. So just a thought. Some of the newer growers aren't going to know that. I didn't know that until this year. Matter of fact, if I didn't spend as much time researching some of this stuff as I did, we wouldn't be standing here right now because the bugs would have ate everything, or I would have never noticed it, or something, So, thanks. So thanks, YouTube. We appreciate that. At least most of the people I know that are on YouTube do really greatly appreciate the service. I'm gonna save that little chunk. It's dried enough. I can probably try and smoke that and see what we got here. I have smoked some of this already, so I do kind of know what I'm looking for, what I'm gonna get. But it's still got a lot of chlorophyll on it. This one was a really green plant. So smoking too much of it and actually just smoking a little bit of it might tend to give you a headache. So make sure that you try and dry and cure yourself as best possible. I did run into a few people that, had a decent grow last year and maybe they grow off site and they weren't able to, be right there with their plants all the time. And I didn't exactly hear, what the problem was, but there were some people that were devastated as far as their grows this year. 100% loss. But like I said, they may not have been growing on premises or whatever, which that is part of the rule. You have to grow residence, it sounds like. You can't go, have a property somewhere with 100 acres that doesn't have a house on it and grow your plants. Um, that is no bueno in Minnesota. You have to have a fence around it that's lockable. It can't be seen from the general public, so that's another reason why you would need a fence around it. And some of these plants get 13, 14 feet tall if you have the right genetics and um, the sun exposure enough to do that. Brings up another point. Any new growers, if you can get the more sunlight you can get on your plant, the individual leaves, the better. So not only in your grow space, do you want to be able to find your best amount of sunlight? Now, some people like to have a little bit of shade too. I'm pretty much in full sun for during the middle part of the summer, you know, um, 80 or 90% of the sunlight, I am in full sun. It doesn't seem to hurt anything except for when you're looking at maybe your trichomes that are burnt off. Anywho, that's all we're doing. We're just cleaning these up just a little bit and getting them into smaller chunks to go in that bag. And that bag is going in a bucket. There's a nice few chunks here. Yeah, that whole branch has got nice little chunkers on it. So we'll talk hair now. Back in 2019, the beginning of COVID, just after they started saying, okay, people's funerals are going to be getting postponed. Only patients can go to operations and stuff like that. They weren't letting you see dying people, your family members that were dying in the hospital. They weren't letting you see them. I was diagnosed with late stage 3 colon cancer and was told they needed to get me into surgery as soon as possible. As soon as possible meant in real time, about 3 weeks. They scheduled me for surgery and I had to go through the blood work. You have to go through a bunch of stuff. We had to go through scans and stuff like that. So at the least amount of time it took was 2 weeks, or could have took was 2 weeks. It ended up being 2.5 weeks or something like that. And on Halloween of 2019, I came out of the hospital cancer-free because of the surgery. It wasn't because of anything else. I mean, they cut it out of me, and that made me cancer-free. But they still wanted me to do preventative chemo. They took a foot of my colon, over a foot of my colon, and 24 lymph nodes. 3 of those lymph nodes were cancerous. So I had like 14 inches of black colon. I saw pictures of that. It was completely black, dead, black and blood. And then it had spread from my colon to my lymph nodes. And that from there, it would have been completely all the way through my body. I was told that when I went into the hospital for the surgery, I had had 1 month from that time leeway to have surgery, or I would have been terminal and all they would have been able to do is keep me comfortable. I want to make this very clear to anybody that's watching this and anybody that watches this in the future. If you are using cannabis, it will calm some of the issues you're having, especially with pain. And it is possible to ignore, to an extent, what you are seeing and going through. So if you have any signs of any blood in your stool for any amount of time, it doesn't have to be black, which if it is black blood you see, it'll be black clumps. You better get checked out right away. But let me finish this thought here. But if you're seeing red, it's a possibility that something else, and that's what they're kind of chalking it up to me 15 years ago. May have been cancer, may have not been. But in my head, when I was seeing red blood, then I was thinking it was just hemorrhoids and ignored it until I couldn't ignore it anymore. And that was me mentally couldn't ignore it anymore. I knew there was something wrong and I knew I was going to fucking die. So I knew I had to get into the hospital and I went. If I didn't, like I said, you wouldn't be looking at me right now. So if you're 45 or older, schedule a colonoscopy. It's a piece of cake. They have like a couple of different kinds or whatever. I go from a full-on colonoscopy one time, and then 6 months later, I have this little quick peek. When they do the quick peek, they don't even have to put me under anymore. I'm so used to it. So I'm going to go to the comments here that I haven't been keeping up on. I appreciate everybody stopping in. So we had TJ Rez was in here for a while. He stopped in, said hi. Warrior Nation, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for the comments on the nice nugs. Appreciate it. We're trying here. We're dealing with some issues, bugs and stuff. So it's just we're taking one step at a time and taking everything we can, not taking anything for granted. Crumblewig, thanks for stopping in, buddy. I appreciate you seeing you here. Robert's Place, good to see you, man. We're just doing a little bit of cleanup. The plant here is way too wet still, but I don't have the time to take the daily hands-on that it takes to do this stuff. We are very crispy outer leaves right now. You may be able to hear that, but you can definitely see this, right? The outer leaves are crispy, the buds inside are moist, and the branches just bend, they don't crack. Well, that one breaks, but that's a thicker branch, so we're not going to pay attention to that. But the smaller ones are not making any noise yet. So what we're doing is we're bucking it, knocking off some of the bigger leaves, put it in a paper bag. Then we're going to seal that bag in a bucket. And that way I can do a long-term cure without burping, longer spaces in between burps, basically. And it'll allow this to cure a little better because I'm not going to be able to be hands-on 3 times a day right now to do that. This stuff has been hanging in a willow tree, a weeping willow tree. That is about 20 years old. It's probably 50 feet high and 35 feet wide or something like that. And these are hanging right inside the boughs. There's a little microclimate in there that did a really good job. So what I'm doing is I'm knocking off the major chunks, which in this plant, I took off all the colas 2.5, 3 weeks ago because of the budworms, and I didn't want them to, infest all the colas, which you live and you learn, and that would have been probably the wrong idea to do, but, like I said, you live and you learn, and I learned from it. So I'll be a little more careful, but right now, I'm pretty sure we're in the right spot with this purple punch. It wasn't going to get any denser. We were at probably 5% clear. A little bit of amber, but that may have been from like the sun melting the trichome a little bit and distorting it, and then it oxidized. But most of it was, to where it just started starting to turn cloudy and cloudy. So I've done this method a couple of times before, so I'm not too worried. As long as the temperature stays cool and you keep air going in there at least once in a while. What I do is, and I explained this a little while ago, but I'll explain it for anybody else that just popped in. I'll put it in the bag, put it, kind of crumple it up a little bit, and then put it in that bucket. And then that paper bag will kind of absorb some of the moisture. Sorry. Then, like tomorrow afternoon, whenever I get my next chance, I'll open it up and evaluate it. If them buds are super wet, I will decide, okay, do I need to leave the bag completely open? Do I need to spread them out on something? Or can I leave the bag closed and the bucket open? There's so many different variables. But from what I see is after the first or second time, you're pretty able to judge what that moisture is and which way to go with it. If you're not seeing any, this would be a good way to describe it. If you're not seeing it dry once you put it in that situation, so it's in a bag, in a bucket, sealed, if you're not noticing it evening out or, that you're making any headway, it's probably too wet. So open up the bag, spread the stuff out on a piece of cardboard, or, you don't want to put it with a fan blowing directly on it. You can blow the fan around it, maybe. And then once you do notice, now you can use hydrometers too. I mean, I have no qualms against using technology. Sometimes those aren't exactly set right or, calibrated right or whatever, but yeah, I kind of went off track with that, but it seems to work pretty good for me either way. Now, this is situational too. This situation, we got no time, and we've got buds kind of, to the point to where we're ready to cure. And we've also got the rest of our grow trying to freaking pile up on us. So, you got to take what you can when you can, bend when you have to bend. And, if you lose some terps because of something, well, that can be cultivar specific too. Maybe your climate needs a hardier, maybe earthier flavor. I think the earthier flavor cannabinoids burn off a little higher temperature. So instead of, your trichome starting to melt and evaporate at, let's say 60 or 70 degrees, maybe you got a couple there that'll hold up under 20 or 80 degrees. I don't know. Don't give up, for one thing. I found that out a few times. Now, this is pretty larfy stuff on that stick, so even if I drop it on the floor, I probably wouldn't worry too much about it, but that was the best looking one out of that branch. So, other things. So, yeah, the cancer, we'll go back to the cancer. We don't talk about this really enough. It grosses out people. People are shamed by it or whatever, especially for people that grew up smoking anything. let alone unregulated stuff from who knows where. Um, and obviously, they're in it for the money. So if they get bugs, they just want to kill the bugs. So they'll spray it with stuff. We don't want that. I don't know. Just a way to kill some time and talk to some homies, romies, everybody. Michael, brother, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. We're just cleaning up this little misfit. It's my purple punch lemon drizzle. Pretty sticky. It was under some warmer temperatures today, so we probably lost a few trichomes. But when I did look at it, I still see some on there. And right now, we're just basically padding our wallet, or whatever you want to call it, with these things. It doesn't have to be the best, because maybe we'll squish it, maybe we'll save it until we run out. If we run out this year, like we did last year, criminy, gave way too much of the stuff away. We were way proud of what was produced last year. Very smokable, very smooth. Had a couple of different kinds. So we had some that was a little stronger and some that was less strong, but it was more fully effective. Had a better effect, smoked better, maybe produced better rosin or more rosin. Yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. Right now, we're just trying to stay on top of everything, whether or not it's ready to go or not. We don't got time to stand around, and that huge plant is getting ready to come down sooner or later, and we're going to need time and space and energy to handle that thing. That's definitely going to be the last one to come down. I'm going to start taking small samples of the Gubblebum, my own genetic, until we hit the sweet spot to where I like it, and then I'm going to cut that one down. But the next one to come down is the blueberry sprinkle, and we've got 2 or 3 days of 80-degree temperatures, and that is no bueno for what I'm trying to do. So I'm leaving everything on the plant from now on until we hit a stretch of cooler temperatures, preferably in the 60s or 70s, roughly. Let's catch up on the chat here. We got Warrior Nation still hanging out, Michael and Robert's Place. Michael wondering what's up with Warriors, and OG Plant Janitor, how's it going? Good to see you. Everybody's doing well from what I've heard. Michael says he would love to make rosin. Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, oh, you got some octane mints? That's cool. Yeah. I would say start out with just making some flower rosin with a hair straightener. I got a hair straightener around here that I used last year. Get some parchment paper and take one of your nugs, preferably the denser ones, because I've found that if you try and do just like, I don't know, like my brown shit that I kind of screwed up, if you're just trying to make a little bit of flower rosin out of that, it's not going to produce anything. But you can make a pretty good couple of dabs out of a good dense dried nug and a hair straightener with some parchment paper. Take the chunk of butt off, about this big. Wrap it in your parchment paper. Just fold your parchment paper over like this. Put it in there. Heat your hair straightener up to a couple 300 degrees probably, because you're not going to have the mechanical strength to press that thing like you should, like a press would. But so you're going to want to use hotter temperatures and squish that sucker and hold it there for like 30 seconds or so. If it's dried properly, it won't steam a whole bunch, and you'll get a nice thick rosin that, is smokable pretty much on the spot. But if you press a few of them and cold cure that thing for, a week maybe, or if you have some already made that's already cured, you can mix the new stuff into that stuff, and that'll kind of cure it right away for smoking. But, and I became more aware of this when I went to this last party, even somebody who says they know what they're doing can try and pull one over your eyes if they're novice and the rest of the party's novice. This one guy was talking up this stuff as it was cured, and oh, it's so good, but soon as you hit that thing, you could tell that it was probably pressed the night before and still had a green, kind of funky, goofy taste to it. Let's see. Madtown Grows, how you doing? Oh, let's see. We're going to follow up with, let's see. I missed a spot here. Let's see. Madtown Grows says he's good. Asking Michael how he's doing. So do it when it's dry and not wet. Yeah, so absolutely. If you're doing bubble hash with bubble bags and you're doing an ice water bath, and you can get away with making some bubble hash rosin by knocking off the trichomes, then drying the rosin. But that's if you're using fresh frozen. So you cut your plant down before you dry and everything, strip the buds off it and freeze them, and then bubble hash, ice water bubble hash into hash. Dry the hash, whether you dry it in a cardboard freaking pizza box or a freeze dryer. Freeze dryer will you get to the yellowish, clearish kind of rosin, but flower rosin made, pressed with any press basically, whether you're using bubble bags or micron bags or just wax paper, you're going to get a thick, brown, sticky, and I have a video of it too. You're going to want to use something cold unless your temperature in your room is cold. That's the whole thing too. I mean, if you're going to try and just pressing a little bit of flower rosin with a hair straightener is one thing, but then trying to do the whole thing through making bubble and everything is a whole another mess. So yeah, what I would suggest if you're using the hair straightener is to get that, because now it's going to be all smeared on your wax paper. You're going to unfold it, take out your little puck is what they call it, which is the cooked flour. Take that aside. Now you got your flat piece of paper with your oils on it. You're going to need some kind of metal dab tool maybe. What I use is a dental pick. Or I have a Cub Scout or a Boy Scout knife from back in the 60s or something like that. Keep a cold compress, like if you've got a sore muscle, you got a cold ice pack. Get one of those ice packs, put your paper on top of that ice pack. That's going to cool that rosin down enough to where it's going to stick better to your tool. Collect all that stuff. Once it's on your metal tool, then you can take your wax paper and kind of smash around it. Let your fingers warm that stuff up, because now it's so temperature sensitive. A little bit of warmth will make it sticky and wet. A little bit of cold will make it so hard that if you drop it on the floor, it'll shatter just like it was freeze dried. So you're going to take your tool, take your wax paper or parchment paper, warm it up a little bit with your hand, and then slowly pull your metal tool out. Okay. Then you're going to open up that wax paper, and it's all going to be a little chunk of, sticky brown goodness. That's when you decide how much you want to do your dab, and you'll take a little part of your dab tool, boom, hook it put it on your dab tool, and then you do your dab with it. All different kinds of ways you can go with that. I would stay away from any home resin production because you're using either propane with that or butane, any of that stuff. Completely organic because butane is organic. It's carbon based. Anything carbon based is organic. But it's also a chemical and it's highly freaking flammable. Do not experiment with resin making. Not with using flammable butane or anything like that. Something as simple as a freaking light socket in your house, if you're trying, even in your garage, if I was trying making in here, that gas will start filling in from the ground up. And as soon as it gets to that outlet, it's going to make a connection with that outlet. And somehow that happens to be just about the right mixture of air to freaking gas. Okay. Because now in America, everything is supposed to be at a measured height. So your outlets are all at the same height in everybody's house, unless they're put in by the person themselves, whatever. For whatever reason, that mixture now with your floor space from those outlets down is full of gas, and the air up above it that you're breathing now, so you're not even noticing this stuff. That's just perfect mixture for an explosion, and that's how that happens, and that's how people get killed and hurt, and windows get smashed out for blocks away. Let's see. Oh man, I never thought about rolling a joint and pressing it. That's a cool idea. Damn. Fuck yeah. Or blunt. Yep, that's a cool idea. I'm gonna have to try that out. Thanks, Madtown Grows. That was cool. Let's see. Midtown. Oh, did I miss something here? I bet I did. Oh, Madtown. Sorry, Madtown Grows. Yeah, you betcha. If your bud is good and dense, it's gonna put out some sticky shit, man. Let's see. Yeah, I was kind of on the fence about blunts too, and a buddy of mine likes smoking them, but you kind of get used to it. And I quit smoking when I came out of the hospital after that surgery, so I'm not a fan of tobacco anymore. But if you got good terpy weed, it doesn't really matter a lot. Michael says, hell yeah, I'm going to check out that video. Yep, it's from last winter, probably January, or let's see, I didn't get on YouTube until January or February, so it's February or March, I guess. I borrowed my buddy's hydraulic press. Try to think of what it's called right now. Anyways, and shoot, man, I'd make like 3 to 10 grams of rosin at a time and be like, boy, this is gonna last me forever. And then we'd smoke the shit out of it and make some more. And I was using 25 and 30 micron bags. So if you get into the press realm of doing this, you're going to be using micron bags. I would get, if you're going to buy a press, get one that has like a 4x4. If you're growing a lot of cannabis, if you're not, don't get a big one, But I would suggest you get one with a 4x4 upper and lower heated pad. They have them with your hydraulic jacks that you can jack, but this one was a push button. You could dial in the heat. I was using 25 or 30 micron bags, double bags. So you'd pack one of them bags completely full as you can, fold the inside over, or fold the flaps over, and then start the bag from the top of that other bag and fold the flaps over. Put them in the wax paper, but then you start to squeeze down on it and get it to where it's, probably to where you do 3 more presses or squishes and you're maxed out, and stop and let it heat up. And then, I don't know exactly the temperatures you want to go with, but what worked well for me was staying right around the boiling point of water. So 212 degrees, maybe as low as 180 if you were using sunflower and you wanted to, more terpy, or as much as 240 if you were using something that was like trim and uh, you wanted to get more. Trim to me has a bad taste to it anyway, so I was looking for more yield out of that stuff. So I used hotter temperatures because there was less material there, and squished it down at a higher temperature to produce more. But then when you're watching, you got this wax paper that's all, or parchment paper that's all white. As soon as that stuff starts coming out of there, it looks just like honey coming out of there, right? Because the inside of those trichomes haven't been exposed to air and haven't oxidized. That's where the brown comes from everything. So when you press that out, it's actually fresh, brand new stuff now. And for a little bit, it stays yellow with a bunch of air in it. And then a little while later, it starts to caramelize a little bit and turn a little golden. And then if you keep as much air off of that, or if you're in a cold temperature to where it can't oxidize so much, it'll stay that golden color for a few days. But when it's in that golden color, that's about the best rounded flavor and rounded effect that you're going to find. If it starts to turn browner, it'll smoke better, but it'll have less of effect and lesser flavor. If it's a little on the yellower side, as far as flower rosin, um, live rosin and any of that stuff is going to be yellow, and it's going to be cured and stuff like that because they do it in a environment without a bunch of oxygen, in a freeze dryer. But that first stuff is going to have more moisture in it and is going to steam more than smoke. And to me, when you get that steam, it's like smoking a flower that has a bunch of water in it and a bunch of chlorophyll in it. It's very harsh, expands a lot because you got that steam expanding in your lungs, and it makes you cough a lot. So you want to cure your flower as much as you want to cure your rosin, and vice versa. Let's catch up on the chat again. All right. Back up. All right, Michael, hell yeah. There we go. Michael says, hell yeah, I'm going to check out that video. Okay, we covered that. Appreciate you, man. OG Plant Janitor says, no doubt, very interesting. Yeah, actually, I was first time rosin smoker. Actually, second time. One time was years ago. First time learning about it smoker last year. So any of this stuff you're hearing from me now is from experience from last year, doing it like 10 times, and anything I learned on YouTube over the last year and a half, 2 years. So Madtown Grows says all tobacco gets in there. Yeah, the more the buzz, you betcha. But my assumption after quitting smoking, and I kind of assumed this beforehand because I had tried quitting a few times before that, As soon as you start coming down from that tobacco buzz, you start to lose your cannabis buzz also. So then you try and jack it back up then, and you end up smoking more. Now I smoke plenty as it is, as far as cannabis now, but my buzz lasts a lot longer than when I was smoking cigarettes because I put that cigarette out and want that fucking oney again, or light up a bowl or whatever. But to each his own, man. Let's see. Anyways, okay, so then it's what? Peace. Good to see you here. Thanks for stopping in. Appreciate it. If you're still around, sorry, I'm really behind on these. Cheers to you. Yep. Where's everybody from? What are we smoking on? Let me ask some questions here. Michael says he smokes blunts. Also, LOL. Bongs are a lot of fun. Yeah, yep. All that fun stuff. Yep. It's what? How you doing? Let's see. That's Michael saying that. It's what? It's what? Back to Michael. Good. It's what? I bought a. Oh yeah, 12-ton dad press, hand pump. Can't wait to put. I bet, man. It's so fun. Uh, yeah. If you're getting into the flower rosin, try and stay away from the dab machines and stuff like that. The flower rosin takes your battery, it absorbs way more of your battery than regular rosin does. It's harder to clean. If you're using a bong and a banger, like the glass nails or whatever you want to call it. So I got the little banger that comes out of this bong too. I mean, you'll get it to be clean a couple, 3 times using flower rosin, but pretty much after that, why even bother cleaning it? I just take the torch and freaking clean the son of a bitch that way, burn it all off. If you're using regular rosin, apparently, or like uh, live rosin or live resin, you can clean that stuff out of there pretty easy, I guess. But you don't want to use a big ass propane torch like I use, butane, or yeah, propane torch, yeah, um, because that can be too hot for the glass too and etch it. So, and I've noticed that. Anyways, let's see. Back to Michael. Hell yeah. Uh, got enough to press. That's good. Do I just want fresh frozen? That's it. It's what? Oh yeah, you betcha. It's what you bet. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, that's personal preference. If you're gonna do fresh frozen, then you might as well have you're gonna have to have, if you want the best results, a freeze dryer. So there is other nuances to that. I did make some fresh frozen without a freeze dryer. It did have to cure afterwards. It had to cold cure afterwards because it didn't want to smoke right. But that was actually my all-around favorite. It had more terps. It was easier to deal with. Um, it smoked better after it was cured. And probably had better effect too. Let's see. Yeah, thanks. It's what for stopping by. If you're leaving, that's cool. Michael Lemon Cherry Sherbert for smoking, and he's from Boston, Mass. Right on. Cool, man. I'm glad it wasn't our kind of tea that they were throwing off into the harbor that day. Let's see. Although they've been taking it out on us ever since, seems. It's what? Yeah, I have some Super Silver Haze. That is trying to show the homies, so I'm going to chop and freeze and press. All right, cool. Yep. It sounds like so. The window for between chopping and getting into the freezer is about 15 minutes. If you can get it into your freezer in 15 minutes, that's what you want to shoot for. And you're going to You're going to get a good turnout with that. It's what's in Virginia. Hail, haze, always fire. Yep. Yep. And Michael says he's laughing his ass off. Yeah, well, no, I don't blame you. Cheers, Michael says it's what? Big cheers to you. It's what for Michael? This isn't a plug for anything, but a friend of me got me this for my birthday in March, and I haven't showed it off to anybody, but I think it's a cool ass contraption. It's a metal, or I mean, it's a magnetic tray or a magnetic top with what I'm assuming is a metal tray, but it doesn't really feel like too much metal, but you can hold your stuff in there pretty nicely. See, I've got some, that is a 20-year-old strain or 20-year-old cultivar strain or whatever you want to call it of White Widow. Guy I met recently, actually I met him a while back, but we started dealing with honey not too long ago. Asked if I wanted to trade for some White Widow. And I've been slowly gaining some information from him. And I found out recently that I will be able to grow a cut of that next year to see what happens. Anyways, Michael says big cheers to it's what? All right. So, most of this stuff here is going to be larvae, and I ain't even going to mess with it. You know, about 5 years ago, I ran out of some smoke, and there was some up in the attic here that was in a plastic bag, bunched up on the plant, and I plucked some of that stuff off, and I smoked bunnies of it for like 3 months. So some of this, you know, chunkier stuff I'll strip off and just throw in a bag. But anything that has a little nug on the end, like I said, this plant is just basically a labor of love. It probably wasn't completely ready enough. The weather wasn't really conducive, but conducive enough for a couple of days. I wish I would have brought it in today and not let it sit outside, because I did notice there is some trichome loss, but it's not as bad as the other stuff that basically just melted right the fuck off. Now with that though, that stuff I smoke some, and it doesn't have any trichomes, but the THC is still there. It's just melted onto the plant, so it's oxidizing as we speak. But you know, if I can get something done with it right away, or possibly even freeze it, maybe that may preserve it enough to where if I get down to where I absolutely need it, I'll have something. But as far as standing here and trimming it, I ain't gonna freaking do that. What we could do is make some butter out of it pretty easily. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. Or, you know, you can do it with oils and stuff like that. But the way I used to do it, I would take all the plant material. Okay, now here's a hunk of bud rot now. This is what we've been dealing with this year. Let's see if I can get that in there. There we go. All right. Somewhere in there. Now, right now, he might not be in there because this plant's been drying for a couple of days. But at some point, there was a damn caterpillar in there. So if this was still on the plant, there's another seed. If this was still on the plant, I would carefully dissect this area and get rid of just that one chunk. I have not noticed any non-caterpillar related mold. So If it was contaminated, I got that contaminated part out of there, and it did not spread as far as I'm aware of. All right. Galaxy Solutions, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate you guys. Having a good night. I hope everybody else is. We're just trying to salvage what we got going on here. We've got the tops of this plant were taken off a couple weeks ago because we had major caterpillar pressures. And then the rest of the plant was left to go. So we've got probably some of these plants, some of these branches have 2 or 3 nodes of dense buds, and the rest of them have like 1 dense tippity top on there. So like this one, a little bit of larf. When it dries, it may dense up a little bit, but that tip is pretty dense. So I'm just knocking this stuff off. Everything is still too wet to be put in jars. There's no cracking of the branches, but I don't have time to do the daily hands-on stuff that is required with dealing with going from dried, ready to go in jar buds, going into jars. They would just have to sit there for a while. So they're going into a paper bag and into a 5-gallon pail. The paper bag is going to do the burping for me on a daily basis, because now I'll open it probably once a day, leave it open for a certain amount of time, anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour probably, and then put it back in that bucket. Sorry. Ever since that damn heat stroke I had, I got 2 days of heat stroke about a month ago, maybe a little over. The 3rd day I had to work, so I went into work. The 4th day, I took off of work because I got super sick. So I caught the flu after having 2 days of heat stroke, going to work, come back. I take that day off of work. It's 90 some degrees and the air conditioning quits. So I took the day off of work, thankfully, because it was a Friday and the parts places were going to be closed on Saturday. So I got out of bed, figured out what the hell was wrong with our AC, our central air, and then traveled through detours and ended up being like 40-minute drive. Got back here, got it replaced, and then spent like 3 days in bed because I was so fucking sick. I don't know if it was from COVID. That would have been, if it was COVID, it was the first time I got COVID since COVID. But it fucking fucked up my lungs. So I don't know if that's going to get any better or not. But that's why you hear me wheezing and coughing and shit. I can't get the deepest of breaths. Maybe it's freaking asthma now. I don't know. It is what it is. Hopefully it'll go away. I do have an inhaler that seems to help it, but I don't want to go all up into that either. So, as people do say, cannabis, for some reason, helps with asthma and up your airways, and that seems to be the case. I can take a hit or two, and it seems to open up the spaces in my lungs. So whatever. I'm not doing anything right now to litigate that. I do have a appointment coming up at the end of October with my oncologist, and it sounds like they're going to consider me cured if they don't find any new anything. So if there's polyps or whatever, we may, kick it 6 months down the road again. I did have my most recent endoscopy or whatever the hell they call it. It wasn't a full-on colonoscopy, but anyways, and that came out clean and healthy. So when I go in and see my oncologist, I will have them look into what's going on with the lungs if it doesn't clear up by then. It could be pneumonia. I don't know. I've never had pneumonia. I've had pleurisy before. That wasn't fun. That was when I was like a junior in high school, I guess. And it was like breathing razor blades. I couldn't take a deep breath. What pleurisy is you got two outer layers of your lungs. And between those two outer layers is a layer of liquid or gel of some sort, some kind of medium like that, media, whatever. With pleurisy, that stuff dries up and ends up crystallizing. And basically, why it feels like you're breathing razor blades is when you inhale, those crystals, scrunch against each other. When you exhale, they do the same thing. And that, I think they gave me probably some prednisone or something like that. And it's one of those things, you may get it again, or you may go the rest of your life without getting it again. So, as far as I know, the only people in my family that have ever had that was me and my great grandmother. So, yeah, lucky to have experienced that. But right now, what I'm dealing with is just ignorant because I can't take a deep breath and cough out the phlegm that I'm feeling kind of gurgling around. So, like I said, right now I've got a pile of shit to do and can't really take any time off. Actually, I'll be putting in more time because I got to fill in for somebody at work and next week and the week after, this coming week and the week after. So I'm losing, I don't know, 20 hours or something like that I could be doing with this, but it is what it is. That's where I get my spending money. I do maintenance and basically caretakership for a property that is almost 11 acres in Minnesota. So that is any maintenance as far as heating and air conditioning stuff, lawn care, landscaping, roofing, plumbing, electrical, dishes. I freaking cook. I make 3 meals a week for the family here. I do my beekeeping. I do my cannabis. I have my part-time job. And then anything else, not anything. I will not sell this plant. This plant is for giving away. Say, now that's out of my personal stuff. Say somebody, needed something and they weren't willing to smoke mine. Well, I can at times find somebody to get you some if you need it. But that is not me taking your money. And now there are dispensaries opening around here. Maybe not right in the immediate area, but in the States. So people can go get. And what's cool about that is you can go out and look at a menu and say, give me some of that and give me some of that. I want some fresh frozen or fresh rosin, live rosin or whatever. Now, sometimes you may not know where that was grown. You may not have seen that thing grown through the summer or whatever. Or, maybe it was sprayed with something or, hit with radiation to kill anything that may have been on it. I don't know if that's something they do or not. I don't know. But trying to make a point, this stuff here, now some of the structure I may be missing, the denseness of some of these buds may be a result of, but everything you're looking at here was produced by either basic dry amendments that were purchased at the store or fermented plant juices and compost teas that I made out of some, inputs like bone meal, blood meal. I produced my own nightcrawler castings this year, and made my own biochar this year. And pretty much everything that I tried, I noticed, if not immediate results, which would have been, within the next day or so, results, to results that my zucchini this year, my zucchini plants, are still alive and thriving and producing in late September, going on October. If we don't get a frost, these things are going to live into October. In the past, when I was using Miracle Grow fertilizer in my past lives, those plants, if they had a hot day, they wouldn't survive. If they got too dry, they wouldn't survive. The homemade nutrients thing is the way of nature. And we wouldn't be here now if nature didn't know what the hell it was doing. So try and do as much with what you have. I'm using pond water. There's no fish in that pond, but there's other kind of life in that pond. And, being that that pond is in a cattail marsh, there's ducks crapping in there, eating the plants. There's different kinds of biological activity in that water. It has a natural, right around 6.0 pH. Now with organics and basically living soil or whatever, I'm basically a hugel culture. That is a lot of wood in the ground culture, wood chips, stuff like that. Very fungal dominant type of media. That all dictates what you end up with. And I don't know. I've had great results using fertilizers. Synthetic fertilizers. Had great results. And maybe someday I'll go back to that. Maybe the end result of this stuff 3 months from now, when everything's cured, maybe I'll be like, Miracle Grow may have been better at this. Or since I like denser buds, maybe Miracle Grow gave me denser buds. Or maybe, whatever synthetic nutrient I was using, maybe that works better. Or maybe I get better flavor out of this. And since it's naturally grown, now the plants apparently don't know the difference between synthetic and organic nutrients. It's all the same chemical that they're taking up, so that's one thing. But I also think that the plant does better when it has the accompaniment of a soil with fertilizer. Or a soil with organic inputs and boy, that almost feels dry enough there. I want to put one of these in the bong, but I have a feeling it's going to be harsher than fuck. Because it hasn't cured at all. This has been hanging in a tree for 2.5 days. it's going to cure in that bucket. It's sticky, so it still has the trichome coverage that it had before, so I'm glad about that. But it was out in some warm temperatures today, so I'm sure it lost some terps. I still smell some of them, though. So that's just a quick look at, where's that camera? There we go. Just a quick knockdown. Let's try. I had some luck with this the other day. We'll catch up on the chat. So yeah, it's been a while since anybody's been on chat. So anyways, hi everybody. Let's get this loop out. And I'll tell you a story about the last time was I was looking through the loop at some bud, and I saw a little critter. Now I was looking for them damn budworms, and all of a sudden there was something that looked like a lacewing. And I took the loop away because I know lacewings are freaking huge, right? They're not huge, but in the grand scheme of things we're talking now, a lacewing would be King Kong compared to what I was looking at through my loop on my bud. So I'm looking through the loop on the bud, and here's this little lacewing looking thing that I could only see with this. It was bigger than the little baby budworm was, but when I look through here, I see this bug, and he's got these pinchers on the front of his freaking mouth. So he's standing there. His neck reaches out like this. He goes out and grabs onto the top of a trichome and plucked that sucker off there and ate it. Just you can see him going, and just sucked it right into his mouth. He ate 3 of those before I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm watching, it looks like I'm watching a movie. And I'm like, you bastard. And I squished him. Well, then I thought, shit, I should have freaking did one of these things. Let's see. We'll use the bigger. Yeah, it's hard to see here. I got too much light coming from different directions, I guess, but use the bigger one. So you can see there's trichomes. I'm happy with that. They are a little burned off because it was out in some warmer temperatures today. But inside there is going to be a little better representation. But I don't know. That's what your bud looks like. And I don't see no critters eating trichomes unless they already ate them all. All right. Anyways. All right. The next step is we're going to cut down that. We got 2 or 3 days of hot temperatures, and then I've got about 5 days of a window in the mid 70s and below. And if we don't get any rain during that time, in Minnesota, our humidity is right about 60 or 70%, more like 60, maybe even mid 50s. So, as long as there's not a lot of bright sunlight and a lot of wind, this stuff will cure outside or it'll dry outside just fine. And as long as you can monitor it, your outer leaves can be crispy. Now, being in the garage, there's more humidity in here, and I'm already losing the crispiness of these leaves. But if you're monitoring it and your leaves on the outside are crispy, and you take one of these branches and you give it a bend, and it makes a noise, like a crunchy noise, but doesn't snap completely off, okay? Snaps completely off, you went way too dry, and there's nothing going to help that. You just might as well smoke what you got and call it good. But if you get it to where that bend that branch as it bends makes the crunchy noise, and the leaves on the outside are dry and crispy, but you still feel some give. If you hear that noise and it doesn't break, you're gonna feel some give inside these buds, and that means there's moisture in there. Pluck them off the plant, put them in a jar, or do what I'm doing, put them in a bag, get that bag into a bucket, and start your curing process. Open it up, letting it get some air. If you got a hydrometer, put that hydrometer in there, and ideally, from what I've seen, is if you get it put in the jars and you're at like 72% or something like that, burp it 3 times a day for 5 to 15 minutes. And then when it gets down to 65% or whatever, cap it off for a few days and then watch that humidity. If it stays there, give it a couple of more freaking burps and then close it up. And then as long as it stays at that 62, 60, 58% or whatever, that's where you want to be. Once you're in that cured state and you're finished curing, keep your jars almost completely full with a little bit of airspace, but not much, because you don't want that oxidant. You don't want the oxygen in there. Seal it up tight. Then you want to smoke some. So do you want to open that jar every time you want to smoke some? If you're a heavy smoker, you're going to go through that pretty quick, but you're also going to keep letting off all them terps, and it's going to dry out on you. So what I would do is you open up your jar, take out your day's worth or 2 days worth, lock that jar up. As long as it's still, most of that jar is full, you'll be all right. But once you get to the halfway point of that jar, they make a jar that's smaller, or that's half of that jar already. So find one of them half-size jars, put your stuff in there, and start over. Take out what you need, close that jar off tight, and leave it sit in a dark, cool place. Basements are fine as long as it's not too humid and you're opening it up in that space, okay? Because now your humidity is entering that jar and you're losing ground. So go into a controlled environment, maybe a bathroom that hasn't been used that hasn't showered in a while. So that's a good space because it's got ventilation. And let it go from there. It's all going to be, area specific. So Minnesota is going to be different than Colorado in the mountains. Very dry there. Minnesota is pretty humid until you get into winter, and then it gets pretty dry here. Minnesota, I feel we're pretty lucky. Up until this year, I have never seen pests like I witnessed this year. From white flies and aphids to these bud freaking worms. Never seen bud worms. Saw aphids for the first time last year. No powdery mildew. Never had bud rot until now. I'm surprised you made it with a harvest at all. But it seems like there's a couple of these tops, at least the tops in general, or what are now the tops, because I did cut the colas out because of the budworms. But they have some density to it, and so do like the next 3 or 4 nodes below them. So 3 or 4 nodes below whatever is considered the top cola now. Pretty much on most of them I'm saving. But I'm not. If the tip is larvae, it's because I had to take more off than just the top, and that's probably going to be worth nothing to me right now. Maybe something in the future when we start doing some squishing, if we do any of that. I don't know. I got really into the rosin last year, and while I was that far into the rosin, I kind of lost interest in the flower. So I was really thankful to actually run out of rosin and um, get full on back into the flower, more or less. Because I do, the flower does actually more medical really has more medical relief for me than rosin ever would, because it's just more of a full spectrum effect. And that's basically what helps me through every freaking day. I mean, every morning I get up, and if not immediately smoke, it's one of the first things I'm doing. Um, to relieve, stomach issues, bowel issues, like not not emergency type bowel issues or nothing like that, but just achy. My stuff is pretty torn up inside. I have a regiment that I follow, and if for whatever reason that regiment can't be followed, it messes me up. But I mean, it's nothing that's killed me yet, thankfully. But it was not pleasant. Um, Actually, it made me sick for a couple of days. They tried to, they, my oncologist had suggested fiber. I'm having issues with going, not issues with going all the time. My system works too good now, it seems. That's the only way I can explain it. Um, so, it's just anything else in life. You got to be able to manage things. You got to be like the headline of this show. You got to be flexible. You got to be able to bend. You know, don't get critical with people. Like right now, people could be freaking bitching at me on the chat for not acknowledging something or not answering a question. Thankfully, I have not experienced that yet, nor do I expect to, I guess. Let's get into something else here. My trainers, I've been so busy, but one of these days I'll come up with a list of the different reasons why my trainers work. And one, they're different from anything else on the market. I'm just going to toss this whole chunk because it looks like there's some extra brown there, some extra brown we weren't freaking counting on. So, uh, well, shoot, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, no surprise though. Actually, we should fire one up here. So I'm going to finish these last two chunks here. Oops, three chunks. Whatever. And then we're going to smoke some. Obviously, that part of the cookie did me pretty good. I was not feeling any pain. Um, I'm just coherent enough to carry on a broadcast. That's nice. I'm feeling a little bit of the creativity coming out of it. It's like I could do this, or I could pick up the guitar and mess around on that. And clearly, if anybody's seen any of my guitar playing, it is just me messing around. I don't pretend to know what the hell I'm doing. Once in a while, it might have some kind of something. I won't. I won't pretend to claim or claim to pretend or whatever. Nothing. Just me making noise. Of course, it can fool some people once in a while. I have a buddy that hunts deer out in our woods out here, and The other day he popped in and he was up. I didn't hear him come up, but I saw him out of the corner of my eye and while I was playing. And then he comes up. He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you knew how to play guitar." I'm like, "Well, I don't really. I mean, I'm just making noise." He's like, "Well, it sounded like the radio was playing in here." I'm like, "Oh, well, thanks. That's cool to hear." It's just, boy, where are these flies coming from? Uh, yeah, it's just 15 years of pounding on strings, or maybe more than that, probably over the years. Um, Having no rhythm at all, which really irked me, but I didn't. And I still don't, but I'm starting to be able to figure out like timing, kind of. So I'll pause once in a while and draw out a note or whatever. I don't even know what I'm, not even don't even know the words to use, but um, and I never knew nothing about a half note before, and if that's the right term for that, but um, the fingering. I shouldn't even be talking about guitar because I do not know what I'm talking about. Basically, when I'm getting on YouTube with the guitar, is to freaking stress myself out. Lack of a better term, it's an adrenaline rush. A lot of it is just being satisfied that I got YouTube to work on a live, because sometimes you'll try that, and especially if you're zoned in on trying to make some kind of musical noise. It helps if you're not interrupted or have to concentrate on technology or whatever. Uh, to be able to be that creative, or I don't even know what you want to call it. Anyways, I can tell you one thing for sure: it's not the same as growing some cannabis. That's a whole different animal in itself. It was interesting to see your plants grow using your own nutrients. I don't know how much of this frost that we're seeing on some of these plants, how much of that is uh, like grow related, my operation related, or is it more related to the bugs we're seeing right now? Because the trichomes are the plant's natural reaction to pests and sunlight, sunburn. Could that be why the plants are frostier? There is one plant that doesn't have much frost on it at all. Is that because it's a later flower, so it's not in the same state as these other ones that are frostier than fuck? It's all hindsight too. I mean, you can make an evaluation from what you saw all summer and your results you're seeing at the end, and make an assumption. You changed two things from last year maybe and got a little different results. Maybe you were expecting it, maybe you weren't. But by only changing a couple of things at a time, you can dial in what change you affected on the plant. So, say you skipped using your fermented plant juice this week, and next week all of a sudden you're seeing yellowing leaves. That's going to tell you that you don't want to go, say it was the 5th week of veg, that you don't want to go 2 weeks when you're in the middle of veg without some nitrogen, because your plant is just outgrowing anything you may had in there for reserves, or there's no reserves. Yeah, I don't know. Messing with your own homemade nutrients is challenging. Um, but if you kind of stay to basic ways of breaking down plant material and ways of converting dry amendments into nutrients using fermented plant juices or whatever different methods they may be out there. My one buddy, when he first mentioned to me anything of using like blood meal a few years back, he said he just took the blood meal and stuck it in a bucket of water, and then as soon as it got so funky you could hardly stand it, that's when you put it on your plants. Um, Along with just using straight bone meal in your mounds. That kind of stuff can end up drawing pests into your area. So, I don't know. You want to make sure if you're growing outside, that the inputs that you're putting into your soil are as broke down as possible. For the most part. Now I've got some cucumbers, I got some pears, I got a pumpkin cut in half and laying on the ground out there to feed and, build the microbe colonies out there in different ways. So those may be drawn in pests, but it's not going to be, a coyote or the neighbor's dog or a bear that is going to dig up your mound and expose your roots. The activated aerated compost tea, those are microbes. So there's very little smell left in it to draw in any animals. But I guess, sometimes people are in the middle of the cities and they're on a rooftop somewhere. Well, they don't have to worry about a bear or the neighbor's dog getting into the grow, so they can use blood meal and bone meal and all that stuff. I don't know. I just have a good time growing this stuff. You can get peace of mind out there most of the time. You see wildlife. And then when we were talking about my trainers, I'm like to a couple of buddies, I'm not in a real. I would like to get this thing made so everybody can be able to do this. Now, you guys look at my plants. There is no reason why you cannot do the same thing or similar and even put your own twist on things as I did out there. I would say the only thing that would restrict you is if you don't use my gadgets and if you didn't have a decent cultivar of plant. Your genetics are important and your method is important. But I will say this. You will have 100% growth all the time if you can get every leaf exposed to sun. So that means you're going to have to spread that thing out as far as you can to where each leaf has some sunlight on it. All right, let's see. Galaxy Solutions says hi to everybody. OG Plant Janitor, yep. Galaxy Solutions, what's up, man? Peace Man needs what? Mini cannabis. Sweet and Kiki are chilling out. So glad to see your podcast. I appreciate that. This is one of the times during the week that I actually have a little bit of a chance to sit down and talk to people. I hope that the picture is turning out well. I hope that the sound sounds good. Uh, we're just taking the good tippity top tidbits of this plant. It had its own, boy, ups and downs to its life. I want to honor the plant as much as I can. So anything that I think is going to be something that'll break apart in a little chunky nug, I'm going to save it. Anything else will be stripped off and thrown in a bag in a dry place. And, if we want to turn that into something later, we can do that. As we all know, as cannabis growers and aficionados, that the possibilities are endless with this plant. Which when you're using my trainers to their fullest extent, you're not going to have, say, when I grew my 9, 10 foot tall, whatever you want to call it, 14 foot wide, big ass plants that are in the library there on YouTube. Go to like February to one of my first 2 or 3 videos are my big, huge plants from last year. I'm not going to grow those kind of plants anymore because your southern exposure of your plant is going to get the best sunlight, and that's where you're going to see all your buds. Everything to the north back here, except for what's on the top, is going to be larvae, and everything that was back there I either threw away or froze it and probably threw it away after that. But everything facing the southern sky and up is going to be hard nugs. It's going to get the best focus from the plant. The plant is going to focus on everything that's on the top or facing south. When you grow your plant flat out, like mine, 11 feet of canopy that is only 2 feet thick, there is no backside to that plant. There's only a top side, really, because you're getting 1 foot of penetration from the sun at least. So that 1 foot by 11 foot going this way and 11.5 feet going this way is going to have 3 different tiers of buds, and they're all going to be the same quality. Your top set of buds, your next set, and then your inner canopy, they're all going to have the same density of bud because they're all treated as a top. These here went a little sideways, along with having to make video of my progress all year. That made me have to take the trainers off so I can make video. The longer those trainers were off, the more the plant, let's say, stiffened up. And when I was trying to get the trainers back on, it was very difficult. So for all the plants other than that golden goat, the golden goat was a little bit of a different structure and trained better. But I wasn't able to keep the cream cheese completely trained out like I did the golden goat. So it got a little bit taller, but it's all in the canopy, and that canopy is huge. But and everything underneath it. So the structure of that plant is like a candelabra. Been up for a while. And I forget how that was important. But candelabra is a good shape for a plant. Shit. I don't know. All I know is I think this is one of the last buds we're going to take off of this. Everything else is pretty larfy. And I think, yeah, I am. I'm going to leave everything else on the plant as long as there ain't a dead snug on here anywhere. And then put this in a garbage bag. And then verp it every couple of days or so until the moisture comes out of it. And then I'll just leave it in the bag probably, or put it in a paper bag maybe, and then keep it somewhere where it's really dry. I'll put it in a plastic bag and then keep it somewhere where it's extra dry. That way, it won't get too moist. Water will keep coming out of it because plastic is permeable. It ain't gonna keep that trapped in there forever. And it'll slowly release, and that'll do its own little cure on these super little nuggets. So what I'll have to do then is cut off all this extra stem and just keep, something big enough to stuff in a paper bag, pretty much. And that's it. Take a look at what we got here. And that is our roughly trimmed, very sticky, got a good smell in the bag. Now, since this has been in the air drying all day, it's probably, and now that it's off the stick, it's not getting any more moisture. So I'm not going to let any more evaporate off tonight. I'm going to close this up. I'm not going to completely squish it down because we've got denser nugs. If it was really fluffy stuff, I would probably put like a book or something on top of this for a day or two and let that, cure like that a little bit, dry like that. And then take it out, open it up, break them apart, and then dry it a little more loosely packed. But right now it's loosely packed. I would put probably 3 or 4 of these bags in a 5-gallon pail at once. You can also use a garbage bag. That's what I've used in the past. Take 4 or 5 of these, paper bags, put them in a plastic garbage bag, and then close the garbage bag up. The next day, 2 days, whatever, I would start by checking it every day because you don't know how much moisture is left in there. You can use a hydrometer in there if you want. Open it up the next day and see where you're at. If it's super wet, air it out. Open it up, let some air in there. Maybe dump your nugs out, let them air out for 10 to 15 minutes. Put them back in the bag, put them back in the bucket, check it tomorrow. As long as your paper on the outside is dry, you're not going to get mold in your buds, provided you're opening it up and mixing them up a little bit. Because the stuff on the inside of this little bundle of weed is going to have the same properties as your bud does when you're trying to dry it. The inside's going to escape to the outside. The inside moisture in here is going to escape to the outside of this paper bag. We're drying the paper bag periodically is basically all that it is. Unless it's wet. If this comes out wet, get the weed out, let it air dry. If it's crinkly and dry, come like this, shake it a little bit, give it a tumble inside there, tumble it around. The bag's dry, okay, the inside feels good, it's not all stuck together, it's not wet. Seal it back up, put it in your bucket, close the bucket, cool, dry place. Open it up tomorrow, or even, if the bag's dry, when you enter back in there and you burp it, stir it up, you can give it 2 days. The next time, give it 3 days. If you at any point see more moisture in a spot or whatever, any noticeable increase in moisture, texture, I would say let it air out more rather than less. It's not exactly rocket science, but it's not easy. You have to notice the cues. The bud has to be aged enough or mature enough, I guess would be the best word, to dry well and to get a good result. I would suggest a person knock off a chunk, and it wouldn't hurt to take a top, because that's going to be your best stuff there. And if you notice your tops are getting done faster than anything else, which that's pretty much the case with any of these plants, the tops will ripen. You can take them tops, dry them, and get them starting curing. And probably by the time 14 days is up or whatever, you're going to look at the rest of that plant, and it's going to be done. So you can chop that. So, what else we got to talk about here? Minnesota's finally coming out with some of their edible stuff, and a couple of places you can get flour in the cities. I don't need to disclose where I got these, but this is some of the new Minnesota stuff, so keep an eye out for Skal. SKA. These are a 4-pack of Crunchberry. The 4-pack is 20 milligrams of D9, Delta 9, infused THC. It is terpene enhanced. So if any of you have had like California gummies or anything like that, you can taste the freaking active ingredient in those. You can definitely taste the active ingredient in these. So look them up. They're called Skal, Skal. Natural and vegan. And one at a time keeps me going on my day. I can start out, I'll take a couple of puffs, maybe pop a gummy because I'm going to be on my feet for a while. Oh. And then, go out and till 10 rows in the garden. And then, put that away, get on the lawnmower, head out, maybe have a oney again. It keeps my smoking consumption down, which is important right now when I'm dealing with lung issues. So, I really, off the top of my head, can't think of too much to cover, but oops. The plant training is coming along swell. The nutrients making is coming around good. We're going to make some more biochar this winter, or at least get the process started by making our charcoal. And in the spring, we'll catch some more night crawlers and get them going. That was pretty cool this year. I made a lot of my own castings. We've got some new genetics seeds that we're going to be planting. And my buddy D, he's got a new clone for me that we're going to plant next year. I believe he said it was like a cross of Gary Payton and something else. Supposed to be skunky, so if Gary Payton is a skunky cultivar, maybe somebody could tell me about that. And it might not be Gary Payton. I'm not a strain name type person. Um, Seems like, from my experience, if one kind of plant is hot, it doesn't matter if it's that kind of plant or not. If those buds are anything related to that plant, they'll call it that. They'll say, "Oh yeah, this is this or this is that," and it may or may not be, or it may be somebody crossed the parents of this plant to themselves because they knew, they took an Afghani and a freaking um, a Himalayan or whatever cultivar and crossed them. They may have not been those specific plants or those specific seeds, but they took, they had a Himalayan and a freaking Afghani plant and they got seeds from it and they popped those seeds and crossed those plants and made their version of the cross. Those aren't going to be the same. They might have notes of the same or whatever, but those are not the same plants. They're not going to cure the same, probably not going to grow the same, they're not going to taste exactly the same, definitely not going to look the same. Ah, yeah. So between the new cross that D's coming up with and the white widow I'm going to grow, I've already got a line on that. We're going to have some of the new and we're going to have some of the old next year. And that will give us kind of a look at where we've come from and where we're going. I've had a couple people growing plants this year that I gave them. And if it wasn't so damn bright out today, I would have got video of the one. But Aaron's plants are doing fabulous. They're chunking up right now. He's got probably 2 weeks left. And we're going to wait for our window, our temperatures to come down and our humidity to come down a little bit. And that seems to be coming in like 2 weeks, which that's about normal. You get close to Halloween and you start to get cooler temperatures. But that being said, I'm going to sign off and I'm going to cut these branches off, get them into a plastic bag, and then smoke some more. But right now, this final moment is going to be doing a bong rip. I haven't seen Andrew Smogo today. Hopefully he's getting a nap in. That guy, every time I look at YouTube, he's on the air. So kudos for him. Thanks for making all the content for us. Everybody's learning a lot. Here's some of the blueberry sprinkle that just got given me today by one of the guys that are growing our plant here. And that may be done enough. Let me give it a smell. You know what? It's dry enough. I'm going to put a chunk of this in the bong. This little chunk here. Add a little bit more to it because it's dense. It seems dry. He's got a dialed in environment that he is willing to let me use or let my plants sit in for a while. So some of it will turn out better than other stuff. But, what can we really ask for in life? To be happy, to be healthy, for our friends and family to be happy and healthy. And, if you're lucky enough to find love along the way, kudos to you and yours. If not, just love yourself. And I don't mean to be perverted in that manner or nothing. But in a lot of ways, if you don't love yourself, how can you love somebody else? If you don't know how to love well enough to love yourself, you know, you may be able to be in a relationship for a long time, but it's not going to be a healthy one by any means for you or your spouse or your kids. That doesn't mean to freaking all of a sudden, okay, now that I said that, oh, gee, I'm right, and you got to go give up on life and on your family or whatever. Don't do that either. Be kind to everybody. That's the best bet. Look at that. I don't know if it's because I was touching a bunch of sticky stuff already or if it's because that stuff's sticky, but it's sticking to my hands. Ah, so yeah. What else I would say? I believe it's Wednesdays. So I got two channels that I watch on Wednesdays. It's Garden Cultivation Network, which most of the guys that I see on here, I know you guys already know of. But there's also the new, and it's been on for a couple of years, but it's called Minnesota Grow Talks. And it's put on by Jared and Frostbud and a couple other guys um, from Minnesota. And they are all about men's health stuff. So if you are in Minnesota and you are struggling with some kind of health issue, maybe get a hold of them guys. I'm not exactly too sure about what exactly they do, but they do a lot of community get together, um, benefit type stuff, awareness type stuff. They give away now, pro tip, and I'm only doing this because these guys are really freaking cool and I like them. I should keep it to myself, but I'm not gonna. Go on their show, watch their show Wednesdays. I believe it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, somewhere around that time, and it may only be every other weekend or every other week. But they have some pretty damn good giveaways. I've got some Fire Genetics now. I was just delivered some gummies. Those are amazing. I won tickets to a cannabis festival that was cool. And it's very informative. They'll have a guest on. They'll talk cannabis, whether it's food related, um, genetics related, harvest related. I mean, if you're in Minnesota and you have questions, go to Minnesota Grow Talks, watch their show, get involved in some of their giveaways. I've won genetics 3 different times. I won. One time I think it was even a mistake, and I told them that, and they were gracious enough to send us both the prize, which was awesome. At least that's the way I understand it. I know I got the prize, and the person that I said, hey, I think it was this person that won, not me. They were like, well, you know what? Because of the mistake, we're going to send you some, and we're going to send this other guy some too. I don't know how much that prize was worth, but I know it was worth something significant. We're not talking thousands. We're talking, 100 probably or something like that. But I really appreciate their channel, and I'm going to promote them probably more than I promote my own stuff. Same thing with garden cultivation. Dr. Dank Nugs, Growing Old. Damn, everybody. We got Robert's Place. We got It's What. We got Crimson. We got the DGC. All them guys. You guys probably all know them. We got my buddy in South Africa, freaking Northern Cape Grower. Shout out to King B. I mean, all you guys. How many? I mean, I can think of all the names, but I would sit here for how long naming all you guys? everybody in the chats that I contact every day and that wish me luck every day and are watching my stuff, you guys are all amazing. And I will say another thing. People are giving me compliments on my huge plants and the way things are looking. It's all Mother Nature, and the plant structure is 100% my trainers. The way they work is phenomenal to me. There's no stress. Just how many different things can you say? Oh my God. They grow huge plants without pretty much any help. The reason why I had to come up with something was because I learned that plants, when they're trained out, did better. I didn't have the money to go buy all the shit to trellis. I'm doing this low key, so I couldn't have these big, bright. Either way, anything other than what I'm using now would have drawn attention. Um, they are so discreet, I'm losing them in plants. uh, the growth you get out of it, the power it has to fight like powdery mildew, because now you're spreading that plant out. Everything's getting the same amount of sunlight, everything's exposed to sunlight, more airflow all around. How many different reasons? Christ, because there's no trellising, you can get into that plant every inch of it. There's no cages around it, so you can get into every inch of it. You don't have to cut holes with sharp barbs on it, and you're reaching through that stuff to, cut out whatever underneath. I could have done more cleanup underneath, but only in the fact of some of these branches that never made it to the top, I could have cut out. But the canopy is 2 feet deep. The branches underneath it are like 2.5 to 3 feet long. The plant lollipopped itself over the previous like 6 weeks. Those, you got the canopy, everything underneath it, everything underneath that canopy, the leaves started to fade and then fall off, to where now, just like with this one, okay, I didn't lollipop that. For whatever reason, because of the way it was freaking trained out, this one wasn't trained out as good as the other one was, but um, that stuff wasn't getting sunlight down there because we were using all the sunlight that was potentially going to expose the bottom branches, and they basically just, all that leaf material fell off. So, all right, 10:30 on a Saturday night. I hope everybody's doing amazing. We are turning the point, I guess, turning to the point of harvest. However that's supposed to be said. I don't know. We are to the point of harvest. Um, for a couple plants, specifically the tops, probably, or close to the tops. Cheers. So that is a good sweet taste, but it needs to cure. It's a bit harsh yet. Still some of that moisture I was talking about, that expands in your lungs and makes you cough. So we're going to do another one, but it's going to be the White Widow. The 20-year-old strain, cultivar, whatever you want to call it, this plant has been alive for 20 years and been cloned and cloned and cloned. And to me, it brings back some memories. To the plants that were around 25 years ago. So, that being said, I taste what I want to taste out of that blueberry sprinkle there. It just needs to refine itself a little bit, let's say. Got to get rid of that chlorophyll in there, and it'll be fine. It's got a good, sweet, floral, almost to the point of, what do they call that tequila? Mezcal? I think it is mezcal. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. It has a very chemical taste. This is on the lighter side of that note of chemical, but the same kind of chemical as mezcal. If any of you are old enough to remember, oh, what do they call that? Elastic plastic or whatever the hell it was. So you take, it's a metal tube of stuff like toothpaste that you put on the end of a straw, and then you blow it up and it blows into a ball, and then you kind of pull it off and you keep that bubble. The smell of that, if you think of that smell, that's a little bit of what this blueberry sprinkle tastes like. It's as simple as that, folks. So once again, I'm going to clean up here. Thanks everybody for stopping in and hanging out. I appreciate it. Hope you got some information from that. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe up. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you are liking what you heard today and feel like hitting that like button, go ahead and hit that like button. Share these things with a friend, and let your friends know about this. What I wanted to say before is everybody using my technique, which is basically my gadget, can grow the same kind of big, huge plants, wide as hell, the same way I'm doing, with very little effort, very little time. Tell your friends, if you know anybody that is a manufacturer of plastic, small plastic things, we can get something to work. The problem is, I don't know how exactly these, what do they call them? Not laser printers. Whatever those printers that you can print stuff with, print objects with, or whatever. I don't think those work fast enough to produce enough of these what we need. So it would have to probably be a manufacturing company that has injection presses, injection molders, or whatever, to produce enough. But I'm open to other options. Hell, if somebody wants to buy the whole thing, we can talk about that too. But you better have a pretty substantial pocketbook, because I'm having a lot of fun now showing off this shit. And if it never sells, I'll be bummed. If it never comes out to where everybody can do this because I think at least the majority of people would want to do this. And also, I can train pepper plants. I've trained pepper plant. It works on those. We're growing right now. And I've experienced fruit trees. It works with fruit trees. I'm pretty convinced that if I could grow a freaking fruit tree branch long enough, I could grow it straight to anybody's window, whatever. I joke that, one day my mom will have a pear tree branch sitting right next to her computer table to where when it becomes ripe in the fall, she can pick a pear right off her tree, sitting in her house because I trained that branch all the way from the tree 120 feet right up to her window. I joke saying that, but it's completely true. I can point a branch in any direction without stressing it, unless you're talking about turning around corners. Then you might as well use any of those standard trainers they have out there. If you want to turn a corner, you're going to stress your plan out, but those trainers will do it. They're probably going to fall off after a couple days, whatever. But go ahead and I would go with Ogo. They're the ones I see the most of in my personal life. They have their Gorilla Strength trainers. That would be what I would do if I want to turn a straight corner. But if I want to straighten out a branch and not stress that plant out, if you look at my plants, let's show you right now. Okay. These branches were trained out just like my big plant was. But do you see any knuckling here? Like I fractured those branches to get them to straighten? I mean, you don't see it now because it's off the ground. I mean, it's off the plant or whatever, but these branches were made using my gadgets. This plant was grown using them. Not the whole time, but part of the time. I focused on the big cream cheese. But you don't see any node swelling. Okay. So it was not, and there's no big bends like this, in it. So it wasn't done with a trainer, the conventional ones that you see now. Okay. Same thing with all these branches. There's no node damage. So one of the key aspects to my trainers is it will train your branches without the stress. So what happens when you get stressed for 4 or 5 days? Which happens when you high stress train these plants at the top and you're bending these things over like that and you're doing 10 or 12 of them at a time, that stresses out your plant and it quits growing for several days. Some of these don't ever grow, they don't fix themselves. If you're growing outdoors and these things are flopping around like that, that doesn't heal up the easiest. So it takes 6 or 7 days if it heals at all. Mine just keep fucking growing. And that's why I've got the plants that I have now. They have received stress. It was bug-related stress. There was, now, what's funny, even a 70-mile-an-hour wind hit these plants, and all it did was move the branches around. When I was trying to put these plants back together, like one of them got blown out in its pot, it got blown and tumbled around like a tumbleweed. I just picked that sucker, set it back up, the branches fell back into place, and it was fine. Another one got folded up on itself like a clamshell. None of the branches were broken, but when I was trying to straighten it back out and get it trained again, I broke like 2 branches. when you're training in this method here, when it's a younger plant, say a month old, 2 months old, and you're training it out, and say I broke a branch accidentally for whatever reason, I was, well, for one reason was I was trying different training methods to blend with mine to see if I could get more people interested by saying, okay, you can use your traditional method, but here's my nuance to it. I was breaking shit off or stressing it. So I quit trying to meld the stuff together, went completely my route with my trainers, and there was a point I was going to make to that. But I mean, all around, except for a couple of points, it's all able to support itself. This is only my first full year with the trainers. Last year, I grew some huge plants. This year, I grew some huge train plants. I like the huge train plants better than just the huge plant. So the plant that was 9 feet tall and 14 feet wide, right now, and I haven't even picked the cream cheese yet, but right now, I like the cream cheese structure being 5 feet tall and 11.5 feet wide better than I liked the structure on the 14-foot wide, 10-foot tall, or whatever it was. So, I don't know. There's endless possibilities with this thing. I can train clones when they're brand new almost. Say you got a branch that's leaning, or a plant that's leaning, I can straighten your plant out. It's pretty simple, but there is a little bit of a method behind it. It can be used in a high effective rate or a low effective rate, I guess. I don't want to call it high stress or low stress because really there ain't no stress in it. It's just opening your plant up. And like I was telling my buddy tonight, if you can get light on every one of them leaves, you're going to get the fastest growth. Boy, I don't know. I just wish I could get this out to where people could start using it. The people that are saying, oh my God, your plants look amazing. Oh my God, one guy called me the king, another guy's calling me the goat. I've been doing this training stuff for a year and a half. Growing for a couple of years. At least I've been growing, I've had a garden for years. So I definitely knew how to throw some Miracle Grow around. But to learn making your own nutrients and throwing making your own nutrients and throwing out a plant that's huge versus throwing on some Miracle Grow are vastly different things. So, especially with the bug pressure. Anyways, I see there he is. What's up, Andrew? Yeah, this is the one that was hanging in the tree that we were talking about this morning. If you're still there. So I took anything that was worth anything and knocked off the fan leaves, and then maybe anything that was protruding out of the bud there. But that's the purple punch lemon drizzle with a couple of extra fan leaves in there that fell in there apparently. But what I'm going to do with that now is it's in the paper bag. It's going into the bucket. I'm not going to squish this down because these are the denser buds. If it was the airier stuff like you were talking earlier, we'd squish them a little bit. It's going in the bucket. And now, with that paper bag being our buffer, I'm not going to use, because I don't have the time to be burping 3 times a day over this next, 2 weeks or week or whatever. This will keep it down to where I only have to like burp it once a day in the beginning. And then like tomorrow when I open that up, if the bag seems wet and isn't making a bunch of noise when I crunch it, I'll let it air out a little longer. If the buds inside seem like like the outer leaves, I expect the outer leaves to lose their crunchiness, but if they seem wet, I'll take them out and spread them out so the whole area of the buds get air. But if the bag is crunchy and the buds inside, I'll stir them up and they feel like they're losing moisture, but not getting too dry. Then I'll leave the bucket closed for 2 days and then open it up. And then if they feel wet, we'll air it out. But if it's left closed for 2 days, chances are I'm going to open it up and it's going to be just right where I want it to. It's going to be a little drier than it felt yesterday or the day before. And then we'll leave it at open it every 2 days until I can smoke it and the green flavor's gone. And then that's when I'll either cut the rest of the leaf off or just throw it in jars. But on some of them chunks, not the tips, which are not the colas, because these colas were gone a while back, but the tips of the plant, fuck, where was I going with that? Anyways, once that loses its green taste, it's going in jars and gets sealed up. And I guess that's all that really matters, other than hopefully it loses that green taste. Eventually it will. I got faith about that. When I opened this bag a few minutes ago to show you, I could smell there was a better smell coming out of there than it was smelling like earlier. So I'm just going to take these last couple here that I knocked off of that plant, put that right in the bag. And now that I've opened this 3 times here in the last hour or so, yeah, that's getting to smell like something. I don't know what. We'll wait until tomorrow night now for me to open this bucket. And what I was saying before, in a bucket like this, I can put 4 or 5 of those bags in here and it'll still work about the same. What we're doing is working the moisture in that paper bag while checking on what's the contents. So that is what it is, and that's all that it is. Like I told everybody else, I'm gonna strip off these branches that have any material on them at all and crumple them up into a bag of some sort and find somewhere dry. I don't think I'm going to put them in the attic up here because it's too hot up there tomorrow. But I'm thinking the bee shed is probably dry enough and it won't get hot in there as hot. So at least for a while, until it completely dries, it'll be all right in there. I ain't too worried if it ends up molding. It is what it is. That's beyond LARF right now. What's left. So it doesn't mean a whole lot. If I was going to boil up some butter, I would probably use something like that. Uh, Other than that, it is what it is. If it was trained out better, it would have had a little better light penetration and bud density overall, but it also would have had a lot different structure because if all the colas were still there, we'd be growing colas and not seconds trying to make them number ones. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyways, I loved hanging out with everybody. I'm glad it happens to work on a Saturday, and today's workload wasn't so let's say mind draining, mind numbing. But my head's starting to plug up, so I'm done talking for the night. Appreciate you guys so much. Love you. Um, got any tips, comments? Leave them in the comment section. Critiques, whatever. I know my camera on this laptop doesn't work the best, so I appreciate everybody that hung out watching. Thanks for all the comments in the chat. This winter we're going to work on our technology and our YouTube prowess or whatever you want to call it. So hopefully I can have a better production for you guys, and maybe we can get this camera to work. If anybody has any tips on these cameras, let me know. If I'm not going to be able to get it hooked up to the laptop, I know it would work better if I had a cell phone that we could link it up to or whatever, but right now I don't have a smart enough phone for that. And I do know that I can look on YouTube and find out how to do all this stuff too. I just don't have the time right now. But this winter we're going to have some time, so that's what we're going to work on. Thanks everybody for watching. Andrew, peace, brother. We'll see ya. Adios.